Good afternoon, ladies. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Welcome to this week's episode of Cover Your Six. I'm your host, Ron Easton. We're just going to get some housekeeping out of the way here first. If you want to catch up on the brand new episodes of Cover Your Six, we got a brand new, spanking new YouTube channel. You go to Ron Easton, Ron, RONNEASTON, and my favorite word, _ Cover Your Six, and you will find our page. And when you get there, please subscribe. We need to keep in touch, and so you'll see everything that we've got coming up. But this week, I am just tickled. I've got a brother veteran coming on, and he has an organization called Believet Canine Service Partners. What he does is he trains and provides service dogs for veterans suffering with PTSD. You guys know I have my little service dog, Bandit. I couldn't wait for somebody to get me a service dog that was trained. I trained my own. He's got a few problems, but he's mine. Stick around. We're going to have some fun today. Be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, as I promised, we are back with a fellow veteran, Mr. Sam Daly. And Sam, I'm so excited for you to talk about this organization. It is Believet Canine Partners Service, correct?
Close. Believet Canine Service Partners.
There we go. I'm bass backwards again. When did you start this organization? How long have you been in business? And I've got so many questions, but we'll start there. Tell us about.
12 years. And so I was a bomb dog trainer for the U.S. Marine Corps, and I was actually working in capacity of a civilian contractor training bomb dogs for the Marine Corps. And we did that in near Pinehurst, North Carolina. And then we trained with the Marines in that area, but also at their bases, whether it was Camp Lejeune or Camp Pendleton. And then prior to deployment, we went to Camp Wilson on 29 Palms and then deployed to Afghanistan. I was with the 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines the first time and the 2 MEF the second time. And we had 34 dogs, bomb dogs with us with the 2-5. And we deployed to Helmand Province, Afghanistan. And the dogs worked on the battlefield every day. Sometimes they stood post. Sometimes they went out on missions. And sometimes they simply searched our own area, depending on what the perceived threat was at the time. These dogs, they're Labrador retrievers. So this first time the military had used dogs off leash to detect explosives. And the obvious advantage there was standoff, because the dogs could be sent from great distances into search a bridge or a roadway or a culvert or a vehicle. And then, of course, house to house or room to room as well. And as long as they got bored and didn't find anything and acted like, what's so fun about this, then we were pretty assured that there weren't any threats in those areas. But they found ordnance, every week. So out there was certainly plenty of things. The biggest threat was improvised explosive devices, and they found them really with ease. Now, in their off-duty time, they also provided a lot of comfort and joy to the Marines, a long way from home in a miserable place. And so that was really the impetus to start Believet. And that after those assignments were done and I came back, I really didn't want to train family dogs and, solve, the dog jumping on his grandma or something. I wanted to continue to serve veterans and serve my community. And so we started Believet Canine Service Partners at that time to provide service dogs free of charge to disabled military veterans.
Now, you had mentioned, are Labradors preferred breed to work with?
The Marine Corps chose them because they were going to use them off leash, and you just couldn't have a shepherd go bite somebody or get in a fight someplace. And so they were chosen for their universal family friendly reputation. And so in our business, we use a different type of Labrador retriever. We use a much more calm of a disposition in a Labrador than we certainly would have at the detection dog. But yes, they are hard to beat. They can take a lot of heat. They can take a lot of cold. They don't mind, any other breed really. I mean, they don't have any issues with socialization typically. And we have very, much higher percentage of our Labradors and Golden Retrievers get through our program as opposed to other breeds.
When you pick these dogs, at what age do you get them, and how long is the training program?
Mm-hmm. So it varies. One model is that we actually raise the puppies ourselves, or somebody donates a puppy to us, and then that puppy is raised by a foster family until it's about 9 months old. And at 9 months old, then the puppy comes in here for training full time. So they train 5 days a week here. And on the weekend, the foster family picks them up again and takes them home for the weekend so they don't just sitting here staring at the walls,
Mhm.
and get to be a dog and get to be with a family during that training period. Because the training period is normally approximately 1 year. Sometimes it can be 18 months, but oftentimes, depending on the dog, 1 year. So if we start a dog at 9 months old, you add 12 more months onto that. And before the dog's second birthday, they're typically placed with the veteran. And certainly if there's any issue with them, whether it be health or behavior, we know that long before, that moment comes.
In training, what do you train these dogs to key on? I know in my case with my PTSD, it's the anxiety. And even though Bandit is not trained that way, he will show up on my bed as I'm having an anxiety and he'll be there before I know he's there.
Right.
So how do you train these dogs to key on that?
And so we trained some what I would call kind of contrived behaviors. That is, we certainly put them through all their fetching skills. Fetching becomes, an obedience type behavior rather than simply a game. And then we teach a skill called visit. Visit is something where the dog will actually put their body weight on your body to calm you and to also maybe redirect you from whatever it is that you're experiencing. So our veterans that come through our door, they're by and large suicidal or have had issues with suicide in the past, and so they suffer major depressive disorder, tremendous anxiety, many times traumatic brain injury, and then oftentimes physical ailments as well. And so the dogs are all custom trained for each individual because their service skills are one thing, and they have to perform a minimum of 3 useful service skills that directly help with that disability. And so if somebody's hard of hearing, this dog can respond to bells or lights. If the dog, it doesn't see well, they can also help in that area. If the dog or if the veteran does. And if the veteran has, bad knees and bad back, bad hips and things like that, and they simply can't pick up a dropped item. Like imagine, you're trying to call for help and it's wintertime and you drop your phone in the snow and you can't physically pick it up. The dog will pick it up for you. And much more commonly, it's when you're in the store and you want to buy something and you drop your credit card. Those are hard to pick up anytime, anyway. But the dogs are trained to pick up the credit cards for them so that they can continue with their day. And then, they provide so much social interaction. So most veterans that are disabled in a psychiatric sense, like with post-traumatic stress, they don't meet people well. They don't. They certainly don't seek out large gatherings and things like that. And so, what a better way to break the ice than to have a service dog with you and have someone come up and say, "Oh, your dog is so beautiful. What's your dog's name? How old is your dog?" And now suddenly, a veteran that would otherwise avoid a conversation like that can engage in one. And other aspects are simply day to day, like it's a reason to get out of bed. We have to. This dog has to go to the bathroom. This dog has to be fed. Has to go to the veterinarian sometimes. And so these are all reasons to partake and leave the house and just exist out in society in a more social way.
And it's also kind of furthering that team thing because you and that dog are a team and he's going to depend upon you just like you depend upon him for daily needs and things like that. When a person comes into you, how do you match them up with a dog?
Frankly, they're matched up fairly closely to the person. So if we have, maybe a Vietnam era veteran that is older, maybe has some physical restrictions, then we're going to probably give them a dog that's a little quieter, not necessarily a couch potato, but one that's simply easier to handle and not much of it doesn't demand as much physically to handle them. And then if somebody is 35 years old and they want to go kayaking and they want to hike the trails, but they don't feel safe doing those things, then we can give them a more active dog because they will appreciate that more and they will both enjoy and utilize that extra exercise and all those public outing.
Over the 12 years, how many dogs do you think you've placed?
So 80 is the number. It's right at 80. We have 4 going out the door here very shortly, so it'll be a little higher than that. But, imagine the first year we didn't do any because the dogs were all puppies. And the second year we only had 1. And then the third, fourth, fifth year is like about 6 is how we did. Now we're in the 15 a year kind of mode. And a lot of that just has to do with our funding. So we would love to do, 50 dogs a year, but we just simply don't raise enough money to support that.
Where does your funding come from?
The small donor, primarily. So these are people who are donating $25 to $50, $100 kind of thing. And I meet them many, many places, at schools and at churches and at people's businesses, the Rotary clubs, the VFWs, the Legions, the Elks Club. There are all kinds of variety. And then we just simply talk a lot to people like we're doing today. And some people feel compelled to reach out and learn more about us and either volunteer with us, which is a big help, or donate to us, or both.
Where would people get in touch with you to either volunteer or donate?
Yeah, so our website's the best place, and that's where veterans should reach out to us too, by the way. So if someone would like to learn more about us, about Believe It for themselves or for one of their loved ones, it's also the best way to kind of get their feet wet in terms of what the information is and what we do. But we use volunteers, especially our fosters that raise our puppies for us. They are the lifeblood of our organization because we can't keep 30 adolescent dogs in our kennel at one time. It would just be a maintenance nightmare. And so we would be doing them a disservice anyway. Whereas if they can be raised in families and come in for training, and then by the time they turn 9 months old, come in full time for training, then we can really have a well adjusted dog that's ready for the kind of assignment that they're going to have. So yeah, it's our website is the best place to get a hold of us and get all of our information. For veterans, we have an eligibility survey on there. That's just a way to capture contact information and get some preliminary things out. And then we can, we have a veteran coordinator that we can talk more to. And then for volunteers or for donors, there are pages on there too. So we do galas, we do sporting clays, clay target shooting tournament. We do a golf tournament, things like that we do out through the year. And so if any of those things are interesting to people, like, I really love golf tournaments, I'd like to go help out on theirs, we're all for it.
Let me ask you this, and this is more on a personal basis. What is your thoughts as far as e-collars in training?
Yeah, it's a good question. Officially, Believe It does not and cannot use them. So we don't use pinch collars, choke chains, or e-collars. We are accredited by an organization called Assistance Dogs International. It's the only accrediting organization that the VA recognizes in terms of legitimacy for programs like ours. And part of those rules is that we do not utilize any of those items. So in the wrong hands, there's certainly a disaster. Even in the right hands, they can also be very detrimental. And in terms of keeping a good thought or a good plan ethically and morally, it's just better to avoid them altogether.
It's I'm guilty of using one, but I learned how to use it properly. I didn't use it for, like trying to hurt him. I kept it on a low setting to where it was just a reminder, whereas, I give him all my commands are one word, and I even work on hand signals. And sometimes he tends to roam, and then I'll
Sure.
just buzz him a little bit. And
Yep.
it's like, okay, that's what you were talking about. But I do understand because I've seen people put them on settings and just shock the hell out of it.
Yeah. It can be it can be very confusing. They just don't understand it. Imagine being punished for something that you just don't understand.
Yeah,
It's like, I'm sorry, I guess, but all I can do is panic at this point. And
exactly.
so in the assistant dog world altogether, whether it be blind dogs or PTSD dogs or any kind of assistance dogs, I don't think they're very appropriate.
I would agree. And it is that reason that I just recently stopped using mine. And it's funny because Bandit, he knows when he doesn't have it on because I'll call him
Sure.
inside and he'll sit there and look at me like, you talking to
Mhm.
me? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm talking to you. Come on, man. And then I go treat. Okay, fine. You got food involved in. And that's what it turned out to be. I just positive reinforcement with treats.
Yeah.
And he'll be 7 in July.
Okay.
So God willing, and the creek don't wise, I'll have him for quite a few more years.
So, you mentioned treats, and treats are very important, especially in raising puppies and starting young dogs. Believe it or not, there are some dogs that are not food motivated, and those dogs can be very challenging to train as service dogs because you just don't have that element of connection. It's sort of a primal connection, right? Food. And so that is one of the ways that young dogs can be evaluated for this type of work is their relative desire for food.
I've never seen a dog that's not food motivated.
No,
Is there a certain breed?
no, not really a certain breed. They're out there, but
Walking that dro-
it's like a Labrador Retriever that doesn't want to chase the ball. Well, you wouldn't think there'd be any of those either, but there are.
There are. Well, it's like different strokes for different folks. Sam Daly, you are doing not only great work, you're doing God's work.
Thank you.
And my hat's off to you, brother, for that. And simplify all day long because what you are doing, and I've talked about this, and people seem to lose track of the fact that there are at least 22 veterans every single solitary day that commit suicide. And it seems as though nobody wants to seem to pay attention to that. So for what you are doing, my brother, I thank you.
Thank you. In Minnesota alone, loses 2 per week. It's about 100 per year just in Minnesota. So it's a serious problem. And depending on who you ask, really they think the veteran number is much higher than that. It's probably
I
closer
do
to
too.
40.
I do too. I
Yeah.
believe it. And what people don't seem to understand is that there are some times as a young man that you are put in a position to see or do things that lives with you for the rest of your life. And those scars really don't heal. They'll scab over, but they don't heal. And sometimes you can't live with that thought. So again, I mean, you're taking man's best friend, and between you and the dog, you're doing some hellacious work, Mr. Daly, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Our veterans take a tremendous amount of medications. They are prescribed medications from their caregivers. It begins to be such a task to try and take all these medicines at the right time for the right reasons and keep it going on a consistent basis. And oftentimes that's one of the things that leads to dysregulation, where their support starts to come apart, is that they don't feel like they should have to take these medicines just simply to get to work or to live with their family. And so they stop taking them. They feel it's a failure, like it's a weakness.
Hmm.
And so one one thing I'd like to say, during this interaction, Ron, is
Please.
that I think our systems react very well to crisis. That we have suicide hotlines, we have ERs, we have care teams, we have all the evaluators. We can do a 72-hour hold. We can put them in a 28-day commitment for people who are suicidal. We're very good at responding to crisis. What Believe It does is we enter the picture upstream of the crisis, and we want to stabilize these folks, and either lessen or avoid the crises altogether. And one of the things that we find with our graduates is that they are able to reduce the medications they take with the use of a trained service dog. So they're actually able to kind of wean off of those things. Not all of them, and it's not appropriate to do all of them, but many of them that they feel the worst about taking. Certainly anything that has to do with the pain and the opioids. And opioids are great. They work and they have a purpose, but they're not a solution. Yeah, they can save you from crisis, but when it comes time to stabilize ahead of this, to stay out of the emergency room, to stay out of law enforcement interaction, all those things are so important, and that's where we view our work is upstream of the crisis.
Daily, if there's anything that I or people here at Cover Your Six can do to be of service to you and your organization, man, don't hesitate to call me.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service and everything that you're doing as a veteran for veterans.
Thank you very much, sir. It's an honor to be with you, and I just want to say personally too that I appreciate your service.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sam Daly.